So let me ask you a question that may be a little off point, but I hope helpful. A lot of people in this room and a lot of people in the world want to follow their passion, okay? But they've also got to put food on the table and pay the rent and pay the bills. How do you do both at the same time? How do you build, have your mission, have your passion, and do that when you know the world is a tough place, hard to make a living, hard to pay the bills, places expensive? How do you do that? How do you thread that needle?
Well, it depends on who you're dealing with, right? If the person is entrepreneurial and they ask me this question, I always tell them, you know, you've got to take care of your kids, you've got to pay the bills. And I said, but, you know, tell me when you work. And they tell me, well, you know, I work, 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 and I'm exhausted and everything else. I said, well, what are you doing with the other 8 hours? Because that's what I did. I worked as a janitor all night long, middle of the night, everything else. I could compress time there because it was based on results, not time. So if I could do a great job in shorter time, I had that time. But then, what I start doing between, 7 o'clock at night and 2 in the morning, which is pretty much the time I worked, that's when I was developing myself, getting the skills, learning, educating, starting the business. So I think people just have to realize it's a gut-wrenching process. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Most people fail in entrepreneurship. The vast majority fail. 96% at 10 years, but what happens after 10 years? All clear sailing after that? Anybody remember Lehman Brothers? They ran a century. They had gross revenues over a century of more than $1 trillion with a T dollars. That's what went through their bank accounts over that century, and they're gone. So I don't think it's right for everybody. I think you have to really be clear, is your personality the right personality if you're going to begin in this area? And then if you're going to work for somebody else, you can still become financially free, but that means you got to stop being a consumer and become an owner under entrepreneurs. You want to own businesses, right? Get out of just being, don't just own an iPhone, own the company, but not just Apple, obviously. But
how do you keep your energy up and your enthusiasm up?
How
do you do it?
I'm wired for it. It's my nature to some extent, but also the other part is I get to see results. I mean, who here has been touched by my work before? I'm curious. Anybody in this room? So look around the room and how's it hard to be inspired when I'm in a room and a third or 40% or 50% have used my work? And so people come up to me every day, dozens of people a day if I'm traveling, and they tell me the most amazing stories. Outside my children and my wife, that's probably the greatest gift of my life. I never get tired of hearing it, and it just makes me want to deliver more, give more, have more impact.
You get the last word. Tell them what you want them to know.
Well, if you're entrepreneurs out there, here's what I'd say to you. I'd say, don't be so damn hard on yourself. I know that sounds counter to being an achiever, but when you're beating yourself up, you're sucking out the energy you need to move forward. It's kind of like, I always tell people there's so much energy, and I've built mine. I do a lot of things to build my energy to be incredibly strong and have really strong endurance, because to me, energy is life. If you don't have strong energy, you're not going to do anything. But even after we look at that energy, it only goes so many places. So if your energy is being caught up, if you take energy in a business and you pour it into external marketing, going out and reaching people and adding value, that business is going to grow. But if there are inner conflicts in that business between people, then the energy is being sucked in here and less energy is going out there. The business is going to have problems. That's also true of you. If you allow your disappointments to create these inner conflicts and fears and you let them run wild within you, they're going to suck the energy out you need to go to the next level in your business. You have to discipline your disappointment now. Mine is the 90-second rule. So watch this. Try something real fast. Look around this room. I'm going to give you a test. Look around this room and see everything that's brown. I'm going to test you in a moment. Look behind you, look around you, look at clothing, look at people, look anything that's brown. Brown, 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 brown. Record it in your mind. Close your eyes. Now, with your eyes closed, tell me everything you saw just now that was red. If you see more brown than red, say I. Open your eyes, look for red now. Really look for red. Look for it anywhere you can find it. Look around you, look beside you, look at the front, back. How many found more red this time? Raise your hand if you did. Say I. Why'd you find more red this time?
But you told me to.
Seek and ye shall find. But here's what's amazing. Seek and you shall find even if it's not there. I'll prove it to you. How many saw beige shit, called it brown just to feel successful? How many saw burgundy, called it red just so you can count more pieces? So if you think you're a jerk or someone else is a jerk, you're going to color it. You're going to change it. You're going to find the jerkiness in them. You're going to find the jerk in you. It's really important that you manage your mental and emotional state, because you are the business. If you are the leader, your responsibility, your job, your opportunity, your privilege is to be able to truly lead. And you cannot lead if you're living in fear. You cannot lead in a place of constant uncertainty. We all have uncertainty at times. But if you watch an athlete go out to shoot a free throw, or a kicker in the NFL to go kick the ball, how many have seen that person, they're about to kick it, they're about to shoot it, and you go, they're gonna miss it, and you know they're gonna miss it. Who's experienced this before? How did you know? You could see in their body that they're missing the core ingredient, absolute certainty. You can have the great skills in the world, but when you lose that certainty, the athlete goes down. That's usually when I get the call. I gotta rewire them and get them back where they can execute at that level. So be kind to yourself, as corny as that sounds. Not to be kind to yourself, but so there's more energy available to solve the problems and to build the business and to meet your mission. Because the time you're beating yourself up, you're trying to prove to yourself you really care, but meanwhile what you're doing is sucking the energy out of your growth. I had somebody who embezzled some money when I was a tiny company. Like when the company was $3 million. And the guy embezzled $250,000, and I was $758,000 in debt and thought I was in profit. And in those days, everybody told me I had to go bankrupt. And I remember I was just like so angry. There's so much anger because my business was like my child. This guy tried to kill my child, So I was chasing him into Mexico so I could beat the hell out of him and put him in prison. And then I realized in the middle of this stuff, I gotta let go of this because while I'm busy being angry and pissed off, the business is gonna go under. I'm chasing birds. What am I do when I catch the bird? I gotta focus on how to add the value. And so take your energy, that's all you have in this life, and invest it in the things you love. In those you love, in the mission of your business, and in your clients. If you fall in love with what you do, who you do it with, and who you do it for, there'll be no limit to your impact. But you gotta be willing to do it for decades, because it's all bullshit. Maybe you'll hit the lucky thing and it'll happen in 12 months. But even if you don't, even if you did, I got a friend who's one of my partners in the LAFC and so forth, Chad, who started YouTube, for example, and $1.6 billion in 18 months, 24 months, that type of thing. It's not always the best thing, because ultimately in life, whenever you meet people who have succeeded, almost always we talk about the toughest times and laugh and remember, because in order to have a foreground, you need a background. And to appreciate the foreground, you need a background. So I found that the most difficult times have been the best times because they've made me appreciate what my life is like today. And I hope you'll just take care of yourselves, and I hope today, this whole day, all the speakers, and hopefully a little of our conversation has been helpful too, and I thank you for letting me address you.
Second element in terms of how legendary leaders speak is they're masterful listeners. Another gargantuan competitive advantage. How the great leaders do it is they're just so comfortable in their own skin. They've worked on their ego so much, they've turned down the volume. Most people's idea of listening is waiting until the other person has finished talking so they can start their own monologue. I can't tell you how many times I'll have a walk with someone. I love walking meetings, 1 hour walks. I learned it from Steve Jobs. And through the entire walk, they're just sharing their story, and they're sharing where they're at, and they're sharing their frustrations, and they're sharing their insecurities, and they haven't asked me a single question. And I'm happy to help. I'm happy to listen. Someone asked me the other night, when that happens, what do you do? And I say, you know what? Most people have a deep need to be heard. And someone who talks and talks and talks and talks is generally a child who had parents who didn't give them a lot of time. And they didn't give them a lot of attention, and they certainly didn't give them very much listening. And so adults are nothing more than deteriorated children, and adults are often children in grown-up bodies. And I see that, and I simply am very happy to be a listening ear for them. I'm very happy to give them the listening they are longing for. And I just feel in that hour, I can be an instrument of service to them and helpful to them by listening. Point I'm trying to help you calibrate and hardwire in as a daily protocol. Be one of the rare few, one of the top 5% leaders on the planet who really have dialed in to listening, not from your head, but from your heart. Listening at a cellular level. And here's the thing, when you do that for your team, they grow bigger right in front of you. And the real job of a leader is to grow people. Real job of a leader is to build more leaders. Real job of a leader is to leave a blazing trail of epic producers behind you. That's when you know that you're leading versus following. So get seriously genius at listening.
Warren Buffett was doing the speech with Bill Gates about maybe 10 years ago, and he was asked by a college student, what can we do as students to make ourselves more valuable in the workplace? So you'd think Warren Buffett would say, learn how to pick stocks, learn how to investments, whatever he would say, right? Not what he says. He says, go out and take a course in sales and communication.
Yeah, he did. Dale Carnegie changed his life.
There you go, and that was the point. Because he took that, he says, I took Dale Carnegie, changed without that. You know what he'd be without that course?
Yeah.
He'd be the richest money manager in Omaha, Nebraska that no one ever heard of.
Yeah, and he met his wife that way, the love of his life.
Because without the ability to influence and persuade, you can't put yourself out there into the world and be known for what you really are.
Think big. My mind's still running through all the conversations I had with Arnold Schwarzenegger last night in his kitchen. Talked to him for about an hour. It was one of the greatest conversations I've ever had, and that's one of the takeaways. Think big. He told me, he said he always thought big. He said, don't worry about failure so much, Ty. How far can you really fall? We're all only a few feet from the ground. And I was thinking, mentors. He told me about his mentor, Reg Park, his first mentor. And I thought, that's what's wrong in the world. That's why it's so easy to feel lost. Who do we have guiding our way? You got to go out and you have to find people. You have to find people who have done it before, who can shorten the path, who can keep you from failure. He told me, he said, don't fail too much. One of the reasons he doesn't procrastinate and can think big, he said, is because he at 20 years old won Mr. Olympia. So he said he got used to success and he tasted success. And so, make sure you find some little wins in life. Don't always lose. It's a myth that you only want to learn from mistakes. Well, you learn from mistakes. They don't have to be yours though. People in the modern world with all this convenience we have, the next thing you know, all you're doing is just sitting around not accomplishing anything. Go out, conquer the world, conquer your fears, think big. That's all I could think. He's a big dude, strong, but his life was big. Made some mistakes, made a lot of great attempts and successes.